Hi everyone, my name is Devin Becker, and I'm here to present at Learn at DLF 2020 on the Oral History as Data tool. I'm coming to you from Moscow, Idaho, where I serve as the Head of Data and Digital Services, and also as the Director of the Center for Digital Inquiry and Learning, which is our digital scholarship center on campus. We're going to be talking today about Oral History as Data. It's a tool that is central to several projects at the University of Idaho, including Voices of Gay Rodeo and Control Shift. And while I'm coming to you from Moscow and the University of Idaho, I wanted to acknowledge that the University of Idaho is on the ceded lands of the Nez Perce tribe and the traditional homelands of the Palouse Band of Indians. I acknowledge their presence here and recognize their continuing connection to the land, the water, and their ancestors. Oral History as Data is a static web tool that allows you to publish and analyze oral histories and/or qualitative interviews online for free using GitHub Pages and Jekyll. Once you set it up using our repository template, along with correctly formatted CSV transcripts, you will be able to publish your interviews online and connect them with YouTube, Vimeo, or SoundCloud, or just plain MP3 files here, as well as create kind of searchable and browsable transcripts. So we can see where she talks about using an iPad, where Ray Armantrout is a poet out of San Diego, or filter those transcripts based on subjects that you assign in the thing, one of that. You can also then create a color-coded visualization, which allows users to filter out portions where your subjects are talking about themes that are common throughout, such as like on revision. So you can see Louise Glick, our new Nobel laureate, talking about how her revision process. And you can filter that down and print that out to be used for analysis or publication. For this workshop, you will need to have a GitHub account as well as a Google Drive account, and optionally your own transcript to work with. However, we do provide you with the transcript example that I'm going to be using. If you go to the example and starter files folder, or it's a Google Drive folder here, you can find the one that we'll be using here. It's the sample transcript as a Word doc. So before we begin, I thought we'd want to talk about what Oral History as Data is not. This is not software that you download or sign into to use. It does not have a graphical user interface or GUI to make your using it easier. And we think this is a feature, not a deficit. The tool will allow you to publish your interviews and transcripts online. It'll also hopefully teach you a little bit about Git and GitHub and web development generally, especially if you end up using it on your desktop, which would require you to install a few other software modules, which I'll talk about at the end. So what is it, right? So Oral History as Data is more of a means for cleaning and thinking with your data, with your transcript data, than it is a tool that you download and use in a user interface. I think of it as a lightweight alternative to OHMS, which is a tool we've used extensively at the University of Idaho Library, and which is a tool that you sign into and can kind of install on a web server. I also think of it as a lightweight alternative to the qualitative analysis server sort of software such as NVivo. Unlike those tools, this tool requires you to really sort of make sure that your data and spreadsheets and everything are set up in a specific way for everything to work. So it also requires a little bit more attention to detail and a little bit more of a cognitive sort of challenge at the beginning. But once you understand some of the processes, I think you'll start to see the freedom and creativity and power that these types of tools provide. So Oral History embodies minimal computing ideals in that the web sites it generates can be published on any web server. They're preservation friendly. Hopefully they'll still be working in 10 years. They might look a little dated, but they'll still be available. It's a more secure means of developing than, say, a server-driven WordPress instance, for instance. They're quick to load, and they're lightweight in size and can be served not only from the internet, but offline as well. This follows a methodology that we call libstatic. Libstatic argues for open, simple-ish, library-optimized, sort of user-focused development models. and ask that we invest more in people and less in tools. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the transcript data that you used, how the transcripts need to be formed in order to work with oral history as data. And that's actually probably most of the work that goes into setting one of these sites up. You need to transform your transcripts into a spreadsheet, essentially. And so this is the one for Louise Glick. You can see here there are 4 main fields. Timestamp, which allows you to connect with the various pieces of your audio or video file. And this is the format we would like to see that in, with the brackets on the edge. Speakers, which separates out the speakers from the words that they say. The words, which is the most important portion. And then tags. And it's important that the spreadsheet be set up in exactly this format because all of the features are built based on that. And then tags is something we wanted to look at specifically. These are short kind of words, shorthand code for like longer expressions. So on career would be on the writing career of such and such, or on this is Yale Younger, is on her selection of Yale Younger books for the Yale Younger Prize. And these are used to provide those browsable subject areas as well as the color-coded visualization. So now that you've seen one of the transcripts, let's create our own. So on the page on GitHub pages at this uidaholib.github.io oral history as data site, you will be able to find a lot of documentation about all these steps. So I might move quickly through a few, but we'll be moving through these: prepare your data, configure your site, and deploy your site one by one. So our first thing is to set up our own spreadsheet, and we've provided you a template to get you started. So here we go. It's a very basic template, and so then you'll want to go and find your own transcript to paste into this. But first, we're going to need to make a copy of this. So I'm going to make a copy, and I'm going to be using a transcript from Stephanie Strickland, who is a contemporary American poet. So I've made a copy. I've called it Strickland. It's in that same folder now, and I would like to paste in the text that I have. So I've got that all ready to go. I copy that here. But before I paste it in, this is coming from a Microsoft Word document. So there's one more step we have here that we'd like you to do, is go through this text cleaner. And this is a text cleaner that's been around since 2004. But it's going to take away those smart quotes, smart ellipses that Microsoft Word adds. And that will add those little funny characters to your website because websites won't render them correctly. So we're going to clean that up. This also has the added benefit of kind of structuring the data a little bit better, and usually that allows it to go more easily into a spreadsheet. So I'm going to copy all that, and I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet, and I'm going to drop it in right here underneath the speaker because I think that's where it's best set up. So now this would be the portion that probably takes the most time, is kind of moving things into the spreadsheets themselves. So I'm going to take this timestamp, and it's in the correct means here, and I'm going to move that up. I'm going to delete that. And move up this, delete those cells and shift them up. I think I have a few more things to do. I'm going to move this over and delete those cells. And so now I have a pretty well-formed transcript, and this is all you could need to do, and you could push it up and at least publish it in a searchable format. But if you want that browsing or if you want that visualization, you're going to need to add tags or shorthanded codes. So we're just going to make some up here. So I'm going to say this is when she's talking about her career there. This is when she's talking about software here. And where she's talking about comp gen. And so I'm just making that up. Stephanie Strickland is an e-lit poet, and she often works with computer generated work. So I'm going to just have that refer to computer generated. And we make that more explicit in a filters.csv file that we'll create in one of the next steps. So let's go to our next step here. So we're going back to prepare your things. We've done step 2. We've added tags and codes. And now we need to download the transcript as a CSV. So let's go back here to our transcript, and then we'll go to File. We'll go to Download. And we'll find the comma-separated values here and download it. And so it's downloaded the file to my downloads folder. I'm going to see that in my Finder. And then one thing I want to do right away is get rid of this sheet, because we want to have a really simple representation, a really simple name, no extra characters, no spaces, because it's going to be connected via a website, and clean that up. Okay, so we've got our fourth step down, and now we need to create a filters.csv. So this is the file that will connect the shorthand code to the longer explanations. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to click into the blank spreadsheet. We're going to make a copy. We want to call it filters, because this one is going to need to be called filters.csv when you upload it to the GitHub repository. We're going to go through those things those tags that we added. So software, career, and comp gen. So it's pretty simple. On career, on the use of software, and on computer generated poetry. And so there we have that. And now the next step is just like before. We're going to download that as a comma separated values file. And a comma separated values file is just a simple kind of text-based way of presenting sort of tabular data or spreadsheet data. We're going to do the same thing we did before and get rid of that sheet 1, which is annoying, and have that there. So now we've got the two major data files that we need to update our site, and we can move on to our next step, which is to configure your. So now that we've prepared our data, we're going to configure the website by adding that data to the template. So first thing you do is go to the GitHub repository that we use to actually provide the site that we're working with and the code that will build your own site. And we're going to use that as a template. So we're going to click this Use This Template button. We're going to call this DLF OHD and create the repository from the template. That will copy all of the files and folders into your own personal user account so that you can use it on your own without having to worry. And there won't be any Git history attached to that. And so the first thing we need to do is add that transcript that we generated to the data folder, which is where all data for Jekyll projects is iterated over. So you see these are the ones that are available online. And now we'll need to find our Strickland file here. And let's see, and just pull it over to the page and upload it. So add files via, you can add a quick commit change if you'd like, or you can just use what's generated since it's just one file. And that will update your CSV and drop you back into the thing. And so we've got one other file to add that we created, which was the filters. So we're going to grab that and do the same thing. Also, upload is fine. We're going to commit those changes. And there we go. And now we have the two data pieces that we've got. And now we need to connect them to the actual website by editing a markdown file in the transcripts folder. And so we're going to take another one of these files in its raw format. We're going to copy all of that and to use that as a basis for our new file. So we've taken the Louise Glick markdown, we've copied all of that, and we're going to paste it into a new file here. And we're going to need to call that strickland.md. So make sure you add that MD, which is the markdown extension, and so that works. So we're going to call this Strickland, and that's very important. That's what it uses to connect to the actual transcript. Stephanie, and we'll just leave all of the other information, except I want to call this a YouTube video, and we have this is actually going to be Louise Glick's. We're going to connect it here so that you can see that that's how you connect any AV source you have. So if you look at the documentation, there's different ways to connect the different ones, but basically you need the source and then some sort of audiovisual ID. So we're going to create that. We've committed that, and now we have all the data to create our new transcript online. So now we need to go and edit the config.yaml file. So we edit the URL, some of the variables in there, and we'll go directly to it and show you what that looks like. So here's the root of my folder. I'm going to find the _config.yaml folder. I'm going to click on this little pencil, which will let me edit the file. And the main ones we need to do for our purposes right now are editing the URL and base URL. So DCMB, and then we're going to edit that to reflect our repository. So this here. So I'm using my username, and then I'm going to replace this with my repository's name. I'm going to do the same here. just so that connects well to my thing. Plus Strickland, and you can edit the tagline or anything else you want to do here that will help you, that will kind of customize a little bit more of the site. And so then I'm going to commit my changes here. And now the repository has the base sort of variables available for creating the website, which we do via GitHub Pages by going to this settings portion and scrolling down and turning GitHub Pages on. So I'm going to go to GitHub Pages, turn on the master, and push save. And this will create a web page and the GitHub Pages version. It might be blue for a while as it's being published. It might take a minute or two to publish, but then you can click in and see what you've done. Oh, and there's our Stephanie Strickland interview. We can go to it and see that things are in the right way. We can see where she referred to computer-generated poetry, but not really. You can see it's connected to a YouTube, but it's connected to the YouTube for Louise Glick. And then we can check out the subjects, which some of them corresponded with things that were assigned to the others. But here's Strickland, and it's a little bit chunkier because of the way that the code works and splits it up into these little SVG rectangles. But yeah, so that is the entirety of this workshop. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate it. And there's my email. Email me again with any questions. Thanks.